When we left our story, the dog had just taken off out the door, chasing a rabbit. The dog chased the rabbit up the hill and through Mrs. Angora's iron gate. No kid had ever stepped foot on that property before. Henry raced around the hedge and then stopped dead. It was a rabbit's paradise. "Woof, woof, 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 woof," barked Slobberchops, and the rabbits scattered. Soon, the pooch's front paws were digging holes so fast they were a blur. Henry was fumbling to clip the leash to the dog's collar when Mrs. Angora appeared with a pair of sharp, shimmering scissors. "We were just leaving," Henry stammered. "The frog and the snake escaped." His fear gave him the strength to drag the dog away. "What a very strange little boy," Mrs. Angora said to herself. Back at the house, Henry stumbled back to the tub with the muddy mutt. Little Miss Perfect yowled as Slobberchops shook, 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 spraying sheets of soapy water everywhere. "That's it," scolded Henry. "You're grounded, buddy boy," and he marched the dog back to the garage. The kitchen was crawling with crickets. Henry got down on his hands and knees to track down the snake and the frog when he noticed something move overhead. It was Slinky, hanging from a curtain rod over the bird's now empty cage. Henry's head spun as he imagined a nightmarish vision. The notorious critter sitter was on trial. His crime? Animal neglect to the first degree. Prosecutor Perfect's hissing cross-examination convinced everyone of his guilt. A jury of crickets chanted, "Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!" Judge Slobberchops sentenced Henry to the maximum sentence of 525 dog years in prison without parole. Suddenly, the convicted jailbird was being tormented by a feather-headed prison guard that pecked, 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 pecked at the cage with his sharp, shiny beak. Henry was jolted back to reality by an ear-splitting crash, clatter in the garage where he found the bucket-headed bloodhound. Henry lugged the smelly beast down the hall and into the tub. Little Miss Perfect yowled as Slobberchops shook, 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 spraying sheets of soapy water everywhere. Just then, Henry heard a familiar squawk. "Pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird." A freaky, feather-tailed puppet waddled down the hall. A spooked Slobberchops knocked over the fishbowl, hurling Bubbles the goldfish through the air in a spectacular swan dive. Little Miss Perfect prepared to pounce, but the critter sitter leaped over her, heroically snatched up the fish, and put her into a shiny white toilet bowl. Henry went through the house, swabbing up all the floors clean. He had just refilled the fishbowl when he heard the toilet bowl flush. I wonder what happens next.